Yeah, my name's Skip Claypool. I live in Chesterland. Many of you know me. Some of you know me. I'm not comfortable with the response, Jim, that you gave, unfortunately. And I'm very curious about the response from the board, because I'm not seeing any regret from the board in the raises that were given. The process that I heard when you're comparing salaries, and understand I come out of the business world, I hire people and give pay adjustments and so forth regularly. My wife is an HR director for a very large company, and so I'm pretty familiar with the process. That is one criteria to do salary comparisons. You also have to compare the standards that exist within the community that you live. To see the kinds of increases that I've seen on this document demonstrates a complete disconnection from the community we live in and the perceptions that are created when you give these huge increases in a time when levies are failing and people are feeling themselves impacted by the financial condition for the country. And so you see this huge, percentage increase, particularly, Jim, with you. I would think that you, as the president of the board, or not president of the board, but as the CEO, you would certainly have the presence to realize what is the appropriate thing to do. And so I'd like to hear from the board members how you can possibly justify this. I think Ralph Spitaleri was correct in asking for people's resignations in this situation, because this is wholly inappropriate in the time that we live with, how people are, struggling today in our communities to exist, and you want to give yourselves a significant pay increase. That's the kind of nonsense that we've seen in California and some of the public sector increases and so forth that people are just reject wholly. And so I'd love to hear your comment about how you could possibly justify this and feel good about that. So that's my a question and a comment.
Okay, thank you for sharing.
I'm expecting a response, not just a thank you for sharing. I mean, that was a question. I'm expecting a response. I'd like to see resignations on the desks next week as a result of the findings here. And what is your response to that?
I would like to speak. I feel that I will not resign from the board. This was a process, and this was not something that was done overnight. As Jim said, Linda said, it went into committee. We looked at all of the salaries. We did look at agency salaries here. And if you look at them, our board is not comparable to those salaries, like our financial officer versus Ravenwood, and that's a nonprofit too. After that was done, it went into agency relations. I believe that's personnel issues, and we did discuss that. It was not something that was done overnight. And when we look throughout the state, for the quality of care that we give here, and that our director has been here that long, I think it was at that point justifiable, because we had not taken raises for 2 years. He did not ask for all that. He did ask to look at the salary and the raise, but the raise did come from the committee and the board as a whole. That's my response.
I'm thinking you're going to see a huge public outcry over this. And so, and eventually, I really believe that the pressure is going to become increased to the point where you're going to be making some different decisions. I don't know what committee you went into, and I don't know what you compared the salaries to, but we live in Geauga County. We don't live in Columbus. We don't live in, Cleveland and Lake County and some of these places where they can afford to pay these high salaries. We live in a rural area with people who, subsist on lower salaries. And the expectation, I think, in this county is much, much less. And I'm very concerned at what I see here. And in judgment, it speaks to judgment. It speaks to a lot of different things that I've got concerns over as a citizen. I'm going to shut up and let some other citizens speak here, but I'm very concerned.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Joy Wilmot, Joy Griffin Wilmot, and I've been a resident of this county for 36 years. I'm also a social worker and a licensed independent social worker. and worked in the field for 52 years. And I currently teach at Case in the mental health field in the social work school. What I want to say is thank you. Do not resign. Please do not resign. We need you. We need you in this county. I've been here and been a social worker when I moved here, so I saw the agency go through its struggles over the years. I've seen the mental health center, I've seen Ravenwood, all of these agencies, all of these mental health services struggle and get better and get better and get better and get better. And Jim, when you came along, you made a big difference. And I want to thank you for that. As a citizen of this county, I want to thank you. I am happy to be here tonight to hear people talking and to hear what they have to say. But I think in many ways it's going to be loaded one way. I just really want to say how much I support this movement. And it seems to me kind of ludicrous that a particular person who does not understand mental health would even have anything to say about it. Jim, you are very good at this, and I trust that you will continue in your position and not resign so that we can continue to have the excellent services we have in this county. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Petrosello, Chesterland, resident for 29 years. I guess my question is, or my comment is, you guys robbed the bank, okay, by giving these 20% raises and 40% raises, and then you're going to give the money back and think it's going to go away. And then you're asking for a tax levy on top of it.
It's a renewal.
I don't care. You're asking for more money. You're asking for a renewal. But you give out lucrative raises in 1 year, 20%, another 20%, another 20%. And then we got Mr. Adams there with close to 40%. I mean, you're robbing the bank, you're going to give it back. Well, when you rob the bank, you committed a crime. You know, and I think I can speak on that because I have a mentally handicapped child. And I think you people are just wrong. Then you're going to go to the taxpayers. You give out a substantial amount of money in raises, and then you want to come back and get a levy renewed? Are you kidding me? That's way out of line. But you robbed the bank, you can't pay it back, and not have some consequences for it. This whole board needs to be replaced. Everybody should resign.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? Yes.
I have a question about, my name is Peg Hunter, I live in Chesterland. I have a question about what is the relationship between this agency and the commissioners? In other words, are you completely independent? You decide how much you're going to spend, how much you're going to get in revenue, and the commissioners don't have any oversight at all? Or what is the relationship there?
We are under the auspices of the county commissioners.
So they do see your budgets,
Yes,
and they
they do.
so
They
they
see every
presumably
annual
saw
budget.
all of this stuff going on over the past few years, and they just approved it, or what happened there? In other words, right now, Ralph Spitaleri seemed pretty shocked about this and very upset. Okay, what happened? When did they approve it, or how did this happen?
Jim had probably.
Yeah, I can help a little bit. The board is made up of appointees by the county commissioners. And
So all of you people are appointed
Right.
by the
Yes.
commissioners.
Right.
No.
No, not all. Not all. The way the law is currently set up is that there are 14 board members. 8 are appointed by the county commissioners. 6 are appointed by the state. And of those appointees, and honestly, what happened was the law has changed, and so we're in transition from it used to be an 18-member board going to a 14-member board, and the mix, because there was a combination of state departments, the mix of who was appointed by whom has changed over the years. So most of the, I think we have a 7 or 8 and 6 split right now, but the majority is always appointed by the local county commissioners. And yes, they see our budgets. They see contract, allocations that we make to agencies as a whole, and they approve salary lines, Medicare, PERS, equipment lines, for example. I'm going to miss one or two, but you kind of get the idea. And then our contract line is the biggest one because we in fact contract with so many nonprofits providing direct service.
So they should have known all this that you're talking about here with all the raises and everything. They should have seen it right there.
They have seen some of the raises. The appropriation for last year is the issue. Is what brought this to a head because there is those raises. Part of the issue is that we are on a fiscal year, they are on a calendar year, and so some of the raises that were given at the end of the last fiscal year here showed up as a calendar year raise last year, and the ones that were given in the current fiscal year for us showed up in the first half or the last half of the calendar year for the county commissioners. So that was part of why those percentages look like they do. But yes, so that process goes to the commissioners. This year we have asked for, because of our research grant, we'd asked for another staff person that would be paid with those research funds. So that takes a special supplemental appropriation in order to add that staff and that salary line to that. So that's one of the reasons that we're talking about this now.
But,
that helps.
For the audience here, there needs to be a distinction made. There's a difference between quality of care and the great job that all of the facilities do and deliver those services and the pay that this board gets and that Jim Adams gets.
Right.
Jim's a good guy. He has been paid well. I think $100,000. Anybody in this room would love to get $100,000 a year. Okay, and so for the $100,000, he's worth that. He does a good job. $153,000, now I got to start wondering what's going on. Especially when you take a significant bump from 110 in 1 year to 150. You got to start questioning the judgment of the board at that point in time. Because if you look across the percentages for all the people that are getting raises, you have to wonder what's going on. Is there a little cronyism, a little, favoritism thing going on here? Because these are significant bumps. And you can't account that to, or you can't relate that to the fact that, well, Cleveland pays more. Well, Cleveland has a wholly different situation. Cleveland is not Geauga County. So separate the quality of care. We got a lot of good people in this county doing a really good job under some difficult situations. It has nothing to do with what people are being paid. And increasing people's pay significantly like this warrants a close look and questioning the judgment of folks who are making those kinds of increases. Because I can tell you, people are not going to like this. They're going to see this and say, what the heck is going on?
Plus he's double dipping. Plus he's retired and
Well, that's a whole separate issue. And there's a lot of people who are not...
Excuse me, but we will have
I don't like it.
one person talking at a time, and I accepted this gal over here's comments. Is there anyone else who would like to add a comment who has not spoken? Yes.
Sherry Benoit, Huntsburg, Ohio. Yeah, I don't like this double dipping stuff. I mean, he's making $80,000 a year retirement, plus all of his benefits paid for, and he's making $150,000 a year on top of it. Zero.
Thank you.
Is it true?
Okay,
then explain it.
Is there anyone else that has a comment that they would like to make?
I have a question. I'm John Karlovac, and I own the Geauga County Maple Leaf newspaper. I just have a couple of questions I had just for things people have asked me. How many people that are on the board, the people from the commissioners, Jim, you recommend them?
No.
Okay.
I send everybody that comes in that meets the criteria up to the commissioners or to the state.
Okay.
So there's no recommendation from this office at all.
Okay, and the people, like any of the people that serve on the board, are any of them do they receive funding, their group, their nonprofit, their agency from
That's
the
exactly
board?
why people are eliminated from being on the board, because the Ohio Revised Code is very specific. And it's not just that they can't receive funding themselves in an agency or whatever. There's a list in 340, Ohio Revised Code 340 about, your spouse, your grandparents, your children, your in-laws cannot work for the agencies that this board funds, so that there's a complete separation in how those funds are awarded.
And there is on the board, and how many of the board members live in Geauga County? Okay.
That's a requirement.
Okay, that's not okay. That's those are things I think that would be helpful for the public to know. The other thing that I had, Jim, I know that came up is a question too about the board agreeing to pick up the share of the OPERS contribution.
Yeah.
I think you mentioned in your speech that you're looking to go back or ask the board for action. I don't know if the board's intending to do anything on that tonight, but that was also part of that March 2013 board action.
Oh, that's a continuation of a contract for 20 years. So that didn't change anything in the contract.
That's always.
Yeah. What the board decided years ago was that what you'll find is there are public officials that actually get their PRS picked up, but it's hidden in the PRS line. And so it doesn't show up as a salary item. The board years ago decided that they wanted that up front, and so of the salary that I get, 10% is designated in my contract as the PRS pickup, but it's shown as salary.
So you're paying it, but it's, in a sense, it's coming from the county.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay.
As opposed to, it could show that, but my line item, my PRS could be 10% higher. So they thought that had to be, that should be shown right up front.
Okay. And then just the last thing I had, and again, do you as a board anticipate taking up Jim's, I guess, recommendation or offer?
That's a board decision.
I understand. And if the board does, I would make a request that it be done in public session and not in executive session in light of, obviously, everything that has come out.
Thank you.
Just one other comment, Skip, to your point about the backup documentation. I'm going to make this available to everybody. I mean, it's public information, it's public knowledge. The salary surveys included statewide salaries. They included I mentioned that in my comments. My apologies. But your comments about what happens locally, I think is around the money. And one of the things that you'll see is we actually used the salary survey that the county commissioners approved for Department of Job and Family Services. And then we compared not only salaries, but also job descriptions and what people do, so that, I was looking at apples to apples and looking at how our staff functions. So you're welcome to this information. It shows exactly, and there is, I can't say off the top of my head, but virtually every staff person that I have here was making significantly less than people at Job and Family Services.
So would you allow me to ask one more question,
Yes.
Jim?
Yes.
So, I mean, all that said is goodness. I mean, that you're doing the proper comparisons within the county and so on and so forth. And in the heartburn that I still have over this whole thing, and now you've made a comment, so I'm a little confused. That as you said, as we were doing this, so it sounded like you were in the middle of helping to set the pay scale.
I had nothing to
And
do
so,
with my...
so when you said that, you weren't alluding to that. You were talking about the board doing that.
No. The board absolutely went into executive session. They met without me. They had all these... And actually, I have the statewide documents that show, your comment is right on. This is not Cuyahoga County. It's not, Columbus. It's not Cincinnati. It's Geauga County. And so, I think your comment is right on. And what you'll see, I think, is so what the board did was they would look at the statewide salary surveys, and then they would ask for specific information for me to glean and parcel out for them. And you'll see how that kind of worked in these scales. And basically I was just answering information that they would have in one meeting, between the next meeting, and give it to them. I had no input, and you guys all know this, I had no input, I actually had no idea what they were talking about in those meetings. So that was totally out of my, request or information. So you can see absolutely all this. It shows, what I looked at for my staff. It also shows what I think the board looked at for myself.
So the question to the board is this, and so it sounds like you're a victim here. They pulled one over on you, and they gave you this huge increase, and so, and you took it. But there's an element here when a person's considering a raise, and again, I've given lots of raises to people, but I generally speaking don't give people a 40% increase because it impacts all the other employees. It has unintended consequences across a broad spectrum of individuals. And so, again, it comes back to the judgment of the board. How in the heck could the judgment of the board say we should give this size of increase? Maybe this year we do a 20% increase because it wouldn't get a negative reaction from the public. When you give a huge increase like this, you have to expect that there's going to be a significant reaction to that if found out. And it was almost like it was kind of a hidden thing, like you wanted to skim it underneath the surface. Now, I'm looking at you, Jim, but I'm really talking to the board here. This does not smell, it doesn't pass the smell test. And I'm going to be very interested to see how the public reacts to this. Because if the public is aware of this, I don't think it's going to pass the smell test with them. And so you're going to have a lot of questions to answer. Because it's a judgment thing. Now, Jim claims that he wasn't aware of it and so forth and so on. He sounds like he wants to do the right thing. I'm still thinking that he probably should have reacted that way when you offered him the raise. But that aside, for the board, certainly you have to be thinking about what your judgment is here, because that was not a proper thing to do from my perspective. So that'll be the last that I say, and I appreciate the opportunity. I would like the documentation if you don't mind, Jim.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? We will go back to our board. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yes.
Colleen Carducci, I live in Wilmington. I've been a Geauga County resident for 15 years. And I'm a taxpayer, and I just have a couple questions for Mr. Adams. Do my taxes pay your salary?
Yes.
Yes, they do. Do my taxes pay your retirement salary?
They do not.
They do not. Where does that come from?
That's an account that was set up. The PRS is set up much like an IRA or Social Security, so that there is a pool of money that's set aside while a public employee works. That pool of money is established as a retirement account for them, and they draw off of that account, and no more money is put into that account after they retire.
So that pool of money came from your salary before you retired?
Yes, exactly right.
Which I paid.
Yes, exactly.
As a taxpayer. So I paid for your retirement, and I'm paying for your current rate of pay. I guess my question is also to the board, who's responsible for this. What is the reasoning for such an increase in pay? No one has answered that question to a taxpayer. Why did you give him a raise? An exorbitant amount of money? For what purpose? And I don't want to hear, well, because this department over here in the county makes that amount. So what? What is the real reason? Anyone on the board? Can anyone answer?
I've been on this board since 1982, on and off. I was on the Cuyahoga board for 4 years. I'm a psychiatrist. I spent the day-to-day taking care of 20 indigent patients approximately. This is what I do. And I've seen community mental health for many, many years. And I've seen this board and the agencies and the community for many, many years. I've seen several CEOs. When Jim came along, community mental health in this county was okay, but not great. Now I'd say it's great. It's very good, much better than you see in adjoining counties. Jim's salary over the years has been at the low end, even for counties of this size. Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong. For counties of this size, and remember, Geauga is the most affluent county in the state. Now, that doesn't mean everybody has money. It does mean they can afford to pay their top people. And his job is not a county job, and county politics are only part of it. And I think this whole thing is being politicized for God knows what reason, and inflammatory language like criminal activity and this and that is wrong. It's not true. This is a catch-up race. Over many years, he's been way down at the low end, and I've been on the board here even when we actually had county commissioner or future county commissioners and county administrators on the board, including the county finance person, who was very helpful. But they understand the board, and everybody knew that Mr. Adams wasn't making what he should make, and he's an ex-minister. He is a person that is devoted to and dedicated to providing good service to the community. The idea that somehow or other he colluded to try to make more money is untrue. This was, first of all, a 3-year increase based on some kind of percentages that we worked out. And we did argue about what's the public perception going to be if it turns out to be a little higher than most people would see to be a good 1-year increase. So we cut it down. However, he definitely, I'm going to say it as judgmental value judgment, he definitely deserves that raise, even though it may look bad at this particular moment in time, because we do want that levy to be renewed. He deserves it. It's not political. There is no collusion by him or anybody else to make that happen. There's no cronyism here. We have to pay for our potato chips here. We have to donate $1 in order to get fed at a board meeting. There is absolutely no possibility that Jim or any of his staff have done anything wrong. And I think we've had a number of board members over the years who have served the community well. A number of them have recently left the board because of their term limits. I was fortunate enough to have left the board after 10 years approximately, and I stayed off 1 year and then came back, which is unusual. And then it happened the second time. And in the meantime, I was on the Cuyahoga board, and I was out of county at that time, but they wanted me. So my judgment isn't too bad, and I don't want to go into a long speech about what I do and what I have done. But my attitude was, I was one of the people who felt that Jim was vastly underpaid. We needed to catch up. He had been overlooked for years, and the staff had been too. And this was entirely based on merit. There was no other consideration whatsoever. It was a merit increase. It wasn't even based on cost of living. It was a merit increase. And I would suggest that whatever political hay somebody wants to make out of this, why don't they just put it aside? And of course, you can't tell the public what they think. And especially trying to get this renewal ready so we can properly allocate funds for the agencies makes it a bigger problem. But I still think in the end, this will be understood. And all we have archival data as to how the reasoning, what the reasoning was. It's all in the public domain. You can look at it. As I recall, the executive committee meeting was just exactly the same as the open session, although technically for personnel matters, it was supposed to be an executive committee, but most of this stuff was discussed in front of some community and agency people. So there's nothing secret here.
Dan, can I ask you a question? I'm looking at the data.
Yeah.
And as I'm looking at this data, I'm seeing the average base salary for CEOs to be $104,000. And we gave, this isn't a shot, by the way, at Jim, because I like Jim, actually. We've always got along. He's a good guy. He does a good job. And in fact, we've got a great health board in Geauga County. Nobody in this room is going to disagree with that. But as I'm looking at this, and I'm hearing that, well, we looked at all these data and so on and so forth, but I'm looking at the data, the highest, it's a little confusing only because of the titles and so forth in the spreadsheet, but the highest paid counties are like Hamilton County, Cuyahoga County. We have nowhere near those populations. We have nowhere near the resources that they have in order to pay salaries. The average salaries on here look more like what Jim's current average salary is, $111,000 a year. So I'm still searching. This is not aimed at Jim. I'm taking him off the hot seat at this point in time. I'm looking at the board saying, I don't understand your reasoning. Maybe I don't have all the data. But I'm looking at the data that you gave me, that Jim just handed me, and it doesn't seem like there's justification in it.
You're talking about comparison data?
Yeah, I'm looking at the comparison data. I mean, look at the chart that I got right here. This shows...
What we were struck by was that some of the counties had 2 executives, each getting that kind of money.
And I'd fire those suckers. I'll tell you what. If I worked for Cuyahoga County, first of all, if I go into Cuyahoga County, they waste money like you wouldn't believe. And their health board, I mean, I'm so thankful that I live in Geauga County because their health board over there is a disaster from an administrative standpoint. But with that said, again, I'm not seeing the justification. I'd love to see. Can you do a report? Can you bring in the justification and let us see what it is that we're looking at?
Skip, may I suggest one thing? I mean, again, the page before that, I think it starts with the executive director, CEO at the top left. Mm-hmm. You look down, and the board comparable salaries are Huron, Gallia-Jackson-Meigs, Medina, Delaware, Erie, Ottawa, Athens, Hocking, Denton. I think those are the ones that, the board had asked me to put together.
118, 122 for the audience. 118, 122 compared to 153. And so there is a couple. Now, keep in mind that some counties overpay, too. It's not, when you look at public sector, and I'm one of these people that's very suspicious of the public sector. The public sector tends to take advantage, especially in some of these larger counties. And Huron happens to be one of those counties that abuses their taxpayers. And so again, I'm trying to understand. I'm reaching out to you guys. I'm trying to understand where your logic is. I'm not seeing your logic in here. You told me there's logic in here. I'm not seeing it.
We appreciate that very much, Mr. Claypool. And if there's any other information that you would like, I'm sure that they can get that for you here in the office.
Can we have a meeting or something in the future so people can come and see what the rationale is? Because I'm not seeing it.
We'll try.
I mean, this is not aimed to Jim. I'm talking to the board here. You've not done an adequate job.
You have to know, in addition to comparisons of money, you have to know who this gentleman is and what he's done. He is now the
We're not questioning his character or the job that the whole department is doing. What we're questioning is the irresponsible spending of our taxpayer dollars. Pure and simple. Pure and simple. I'm not questioning, I don't know Mr. Adams. I'm not questioning his character.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned, he backpedaled and said, I'm going to go back to my old salary. I don't want this money. Why didn't he say it when he was awarded the money last year? I'm trying to understand as a taxpayer, these are my dollars that you're spending. that you're awarding to people. I have a right to know why, and I have a right to tell you I disagree with how my dollars are being spent. Pure and simple.
You know, at this point in time, I'm more inclined to give Jim a break and fire all you guys.
Yeah.
And because it's your judgment here that creates the situation.
He's not spending it. You all are spending our money. He's not.
Thank you. I think
You're
we'll
welcome.
close this conversation and go back to our agenda and look at the voucher recaps for tonight. Voucher recap number 573.
Can I ask you one more question? I obviously will be reporting on what happens here. You have a levy on May 6th. Okay?
Yes.
We have an issue coming out May 1st. That's the only issue you're going to have before the levy. I would like to give you guys an opportunity. So I'm going to report on what people say here, and I appreciate your comment and what you said and some of the others, but I will tell you that's all I have. Okay, so you can take that, and that's what the people will see on May 1st. So I'm happy to.
What do you actually need?
To hear some answers, because I will have the questions, but I'm not hearing. Obviously, I heard you had a very logical explanation.
Let me put it this way: it's very insulting, and the public has a right to insult us. But it's very insulting to say that we engaged in some kind of nefarious behavior. It's not true. This was very, very well thought out, and as I said, it was catch-up. It really wasn't the idea that, all of a sudden he deserves something. He deserves it over, I forget how many years he's been here, 27 or 8, something. He never got a raise. Maybe he got a tiny little one's cost of living and so forth. Never had a merit increase, which he needed. Well, I shouldn't say he needed. We needed to give it to him. And over the years, we've been kind of lax. Now, I've been on the board much of that time. And I remember the various meetings where we almost got to the subject and never did. And I think we brought it to a point where we had to deal with it. And also, remember, he is the president of the board association in Columbus. I mean, he worked his way up to do that. He is very influential regionally. And if they I'll say one thing that's political. If they ever regionalize community mental health, Jim is the right person to run it. And that goes for comparisons with other counties, some of which I've worked in, some of which, in fact, one of which I was on the board. Jim is the best person around, and I think we wanted to show him that, in addition to trying to catch up with the pay scale.
Show him that with your own money, not with our money.
And not
Because based on what you just said, he was the highest paid guy on this list. Unless there's another list, unless there's more data. He's the highest paid guy on the list. Here.
correct?
What's that?
It's not the highest.
Well,
Not by all.
based on the what data I'm looking at here, maybe I don't understand it.
Thank you.
I just.
I think that we could have a conversation, John, about that for you, with some of this material that is available.
Will it be a public meeting?
Public meeting, we'll see.
One more.
Yes, this is it.
Happy comment.
What
I just heard.
Where are you from?
Chesterton.
Thank you.
What I just heard, I heard several people in the audience suggest that the board should resign because they weren't adequately doing their jobs. What I just heard your board member describe, he's been on the board since 1982, and the board decided that a 40% raise
was justifiable because it was catch-up. I would say that by your own words, the board is not adequately doing their job if they just realized last year that the salaries weren't in line with what they should have been. So I think your own words support that
They should resign.
that there's been an inadequate review of salaries over the years by the board.
I think it's different boards, that's the point. I'm one of the few continuous members, not completely continuous, but I brought this subject up to each group, and we go through arguments endlessly about what to do. And Jim has always sort of stepped aside and said, just leave everything alone, and that's not fair. I'll put it that way.
Thank you, I appreciate your comments. We will look at voucher recap number 573.